The White House logs for November 19, 1963, show no official visitors after 9 p.m. The Secret Service shift records indicate a routine evening, with President Kennedy retiring to the residence at his usual hour. But Barry Goldwater's personal calendar, discovered decades later in his private papers, contains a cryptic entry. JFK, 11:30 p.m. God help us all. The meeting that officially never happened began with a phone call that afternoon. Goldwater was in his Senate office when his secretary knocked urgently. "Senator, the president is on line 1. He says it's personal." Kennedy's voice carried its usual charm, but Goldwater detected something else, a weariness that went beyond political exhaustion. "Barry, I need to see you, tonight, unofficially. Can you come by around 11:30, use the Treasury entrance?" "Jack, what's this about?" "I can't say on the phone. Just, trust me. We may be opponents, but we're not enemies. At least, I hope we're not." The Treasury entrance was a discreet passage used for sensitive meetings, away from the press pool and official logs. Goldwater arrived precisely at 11:30, finding a single Secret Service agent waiting. No names were exchanged, no records kept. He was led through corridors he'd never seen in his official visits, finally emerging in a small study adjacent to the Lincoln bedroom. Kennedy was there, but this wasn't the vigorous leader the public knew. His face was drawn, his usual tan faded to an unhealthy pallor. A bottle of scotch sat on the table between two chairs, already half empty. "Barry, thank you for coming." Kennedy gestured to the empty chair. "Drink? I'll have what you're having." Goldwater studied his likely opponent in the coming election. "Jack, you look like hell." "Feel worse than I look." Kennedy poured generous measures for both of them. "Tell me, Barry, in all your intelligence briefings, all your military connections, have you heard anything about Dallas?" Goldwater's hand paused halfway to his glass. "Dallas? You mean your trip this week?" 3 days from now, November 22nd, a date that's been keeping me awake." Kennedy took a long drink. "I've been getting warnings, unofficial channels, old friends from the war, contacts in various agencies. They all say the same thing. Don't go to Dallas." "Warnings about what?" Kennedy stood, moving to the window that overlooked the south lawn. In the darkness, the grounds looked like a battlefield waiting for dawn. "That's just it. Nobody will say specifically, just hints, suggestions. Security concerns. Unstable elements. One old OSS buddy told me flat out, they're going to kill you in Dallas." "Who's they?" "Take your pick." Kennedy's laugh was bitter. "The mob because Bobby's prosecuting them after they helped elect me? The CIA because I didn't provide air cover at Bay of Pigs? Military contractors because I'm pulling advisors out of Vietnam? Hell, could be the oil men who think I'm going to end their depletion allowance. I've made a lot of enemies, Barry." Goldwater rose, joining Kennedy at the window. "Then don't go. Make an excuse. Jackie's health, Caroline's sick. Anything. Can't. Johnson's people set it up. If I back out now, it looks like I'm afraid of my own shadow, afraid of Texas. You know what that would do politically. Better politically dead than actually dead." Kennedy turned to face him, and Goldwater saw something he'd never seen in the president's eyes before. Fear. Real, bone-deep fear. "Barry, I need you to know some things, in case something happens. Nothing's going to happen if you don't go. Listen to me." Kennedy's voice cracked with urgency. "There are files, hidden, not in official channels. Bobby has copies, but he might be too emotional to use them wisely. If something happens to me, someone needs to know the truth about what we've been dealing with." For the next hour, Kennedy spoke with the desperate intensity of a man making final confession. He told Goldwater about Operation Mongoose, the secret war against Castro that had morphed into something darker. About deals made with organized crime figures who now felt betrayed. About power struggles within the CIA that had led to rogue operations even he couldn't control. "There's a group," Kennedy said, refilling both their glasses. "Military-industrial types, intelligence hardliners, certain business interests. They meet informally, no official structure. They call themselves the Committee. They believe I'm weak on communism, that I'm dismantling America's defenses." "Are you?" "I'm trying to prevent nuclear war, Barry. But to them, That's the same as surrender. Kennedy pulled out a cigarette, his hands shaking slightly as he lit it. They've been planning, not just policy opposition, something more. I've had people inside their meetings. The phrase that keeps coming up is executive action. Goldwater felt a chill despite the room's warmth. Executive action was intelligence speak for assassination. Jack, if you know this, why not expose them? Go public? With what? Rumors? Hearsay from sources I can't reveal without compromising national security? They'd paint me as paranoid, unstable. McCarthy all over again, but from the left. Kennedy stubbed out his cigarette violently. Besides, some of these people are untouchable. Hoover has files on everyone, including me, especially me. So you're just going to walk into an ambush? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's all paranoia. God knows this job makes you see conspiracies everywhere. Kennedy moved to his desk, withdrawing a sealed envelope. But if I'm not wrong, someone needs to continue the work. Someone with credibility across party lines. Someone they won't expect. He handed Goldwater the envelope. Don't open this unless you need to. It contains names, dates, connections, everything I've been able to piece together about the committee and their plans. Not just for me, for the country. They want to turn America into a permanent warfare state. Goldwater hefted the envelope, feeling its weight, not just physical, but moral. Jack, I'm supposed to run against you next year. This is politics. Kennedy smiled sadly. But this is beyond politics. This is about whether elected leaders actually run this country or whether we're just figureheads for forces nobody votes for. What do you want me to do? If I make it through Dallas, we forget this conversation. Burn that envelope. Run against me as hard as you want. God knows I'll return the favor. Kennedy's attempted levity fell flat. But if something happens, use what's in there, carefully. These people don't just kill presidents. They talked for another hour, Kennedy oscillating between fatalism and determination. He showed Goldwater intelligence reports about right-wing extremists in Dallas, about the strange route his motorcade would take through Dealey Plaza, about the unprecedented reduction in motorcycle outriders. The Secret Service is worried, Kennedy admitted. They wanted a bulletproof top on the limo. I overruled them. Can't connect with people from inside a bubble. That's stupid, Jack. That's democracy. The moment we start hiding from citizens, we've already lost. Kennedy paused. Besides, if they really want to get me, they'll find a way. Bubble or no bubble? As the meeting wound down, Goldwater made one last attempt. Jack, I'm begging you, cancel Dallas. Say you have the flu, back problems, anything. Your life is worth more than Texas's electoral votes. Kennedy gripped Goldwater's shoulder. Barry, I've thought about it. Believe me. But if I start running from shadows, I'll never stop. Either the President of the United States can travel freely in his own country, or we've already lost to the forces of fear. They shook hands at the door, both men understanding this might be their last meeting. Barry, Kennedy said softly, if the worst happens, look after Jackie and the kids. She trusts you, says you're the only Republican with a heart. Nothing's going to happen, Goldwater said, trying to convince himself as much as Kennedy, from your mouth to God's ears. But if it does, remember, they'll make it look like a lone nut. They always do. Don't believe it. Look for who benefits. Follow the money and the power. The Secret Service agent led Goldwater back through the maze of corridors. In the car driving home, he clutched the envelope, mind racing through the implications of what he'd heard. Should he go public immediately? But with what? A private conversation with no witnesses? Kennedy was right. It would sound like pre-election dirty tricks. The next day, November 20th, Goldwater tried repeatedly to reach Kennedy, hoping to make another appeal. But the president was already in campaign mode, preparing for Texas. Goldwater watched the news coverage of Kennedy's departure on November 21st, noting Jackie's pink suit, the president's confident wave. Did he look resigned to fate, or was that just Goldwater's imagination? On the morning of November 22nd, Goldwater was in his Senate office when an aide brought him an unexpected package. Inside was a single sheet of paper in Kennedy's handwriting. Barry, if you're reading this, I'm already in Dallas. Thank you for trying. Whatever happens, remember, the truth matters more than party, country matters more than politics. Your friend in spite of everything, Jack. At 12:30 p.m. Central Time, 1:30 p.m. in Washington, Goldwater was in a committee meeting when an aide burst in with the news from Dallas. The president had been shot. Goldwater felt the envelope in his jacket pocket burn like a brand. The initial reports were confused. The president was wounded, he was fine, he was critical. Then, at 2:38 p.m. Eastern Time, the official announcement, President John F. Kennedy was dead. Goldwater left the Capitol immediately, driving home in a daze. The envelope seemed to pulse with terrible significance. He should read it immediately, should act on whatever intelligence Kennedy had gathered. But something made him hesitate. The television was already filling with images of a suspect, Lee Harvey Oswald, a former Marine with communist sympathies. A lone gunman, they said, exactly what Kennedy had predicted. That evening, as the nation reeled, Goldwater sat in his study with the envelope before him. His phone rang constantly, reporters wanting statements, colleagues offering condolences as if he'd lost a family member. In a way, he had. Political opponents weren't supposed to be friends, but he and Jack had shared something deeper, a love of country that transcended party. Finally, near midnight, he opened Kennedy's envelope. Inside were documents that made his blood run cold, names of industrialists who'd met secretly to discuss the Kennedy problem, CIA operatives who'd been in Dallas for weeks before the visit, cryptic references to triangulated fire and Patsy in place, financial records showing massive short selling of defense stocks in the days before November 22nd. Someone had bet heavily that those stocks would rise after an unexpected event. But most chilling was a photograph, a meeting in a Dallas hotel on November 21st. The faces were partially obscured, but Goldwater recognized at least 3 men, a former CIA deputy director, a major defense contractor, and most shocking of all, a senior figure from Johnson's staff. Goldwater spent the night organizing the materials, cross-referencing with his own intelligence sources. By dawn, he had a clearer picture of what Kennedy had been facing. Not a single conspiracy, but a confluence of interests that had found common cause in his removal. The mob wanted revenge for Bobby's prosecutions. The CIA wanted payback for Bay of Pigs. The military-industrial complex wanted their war in Vietnam. All they needed was coordination and a patsy. The question was what to do with this knowledge. Going public immediately would seem like political opportunism, exploiting a tragedy. But waiting too long would allow the conspirators to cover their tracks, to solidify the lone gunman narrative that was already taking shape. 2 days later, Oswald was dead, shot by Jack Ruby in the basement of Dallas Police Headquarters. Goldwater watched the live broadcast with a sinking heart. The patsy had been silenced. The trail was already going cold. He requested a private meeting with the new president. Johnson received him in the Oval Office, Kennedy's office, though already the touches were changing. LBJ looked older, grayer, burdened by the office he'd coveted for so long. "Barry," Johnson drawled, "good of you to come. We need to show unity in these dark times." "Lyndon, I need to share something with you." Goldwater chose his words carefully. Jack had concerns about Dallas. He told me about them before he left. Johnson's eyes narrowed. "What kind of concerns?" "Threats, warnings. He believed there was a conspiracy against him." "And you're telling me this now because the President of the United States was murdered, and I believe there's more to it than one disturbed young man." Johnson leaned back, studying Goldwater with those shrewd eyes that had read 1,000 political poker faces. "Barry, I'm going to give you some advice, free of charge. The country needs healing, not conspiracy theories. Jack's dead. Nothing's going to bring him back. What we can do is honor his memory by moving forward, not backward. Even if moving forward means letting his killers go free." "You have proof of other killers?" Goldwater thought of the envelope, hidden now in his home safe. "I have questions." "Questions?" Johnson's voice carried a warning. "Well, I'm forming a commission to answer all questions. Chief Justice Warren's going to head it. Good men, above reproach. They'll get to the truth." "Will they?" Johnson stood, the meeting clearly over. "They'll get to a truth the country can live with. That's what matters now. Stability, continuity." Jack would understand that. He was a pragmatist, whatever else he was. Walking out of the White House, Goldwater understood he was at a crossroads. He could push forward with Kennedy's information, likely destroying himself politically and possibly physically. Or he could remain silent, becoming complicit in what he increasingly believed was a coup disguised as a random tragedy. Over the following weeks, he watched the official narrative solidify. The Warren Commission was formed, its conclusions seemingly predetermined. Witnesses who contradicted the lone gunman theory had accidents or sudden memory lapses. Documents disappeared. The Dallas police mishandled evidence with stunning incompetence. Goldwater made discreet inquiries, reaching out to contacts in intelligence and law enforcement. Several refused to meet. Others met but warned him off. "Senator," one former CIA officer told him, "some stones are better left unturned for everyone's sake." In December, he received an unexpected visitor, Robert Kennedy, now hollow-eyed with grief and suspicion. They met at Goldwater's home, away from official scrutiny. "Barry," Bobby said without preamble, "Jack told me about your meeting, about the envelope he gave you." "Did he tell you what was in it?" "No, but I can guess. I've been doing my own investigation." Bobby's hands clenched and unclenched, the only sign of his inner turmoil. "They killed him, didn't they? Not Oswald. They." "I believe so." "Who? CIA, mob, Johnson?" "Maybe all of them, maybe none specifically, but all benefiting from a common goal." Goldwater showed Bobby some of the documents from Kennedy's envelope, watching the younger man's face darken with each revelation. "We have to expose this," Bobby said finally. "Do we? Your brother thought the country might not survive the truth, that democracy is sometimes preserved by noble lies." "Noble lies?" Bobby's voice cracked. "They blew his head off in front of his wife, in broad daylight, and we're supposed to pretend it was one crazy kid? I'm not saying we should. I'm saying we need to be smart. These people killed a president. What do you think they'll do to a senator and an attorney general?" They argued for hours, Bobby advocating for immediate disclosure, Goldwater counseling patience and strategy. Finally, they reached a compromise. They would continue gathering evidence quietly, building an unassailable case. When the time was right, perhaps when Bobby ran for president himself, they would reveal everything. But time wasn't on their side. Bobby's own investigation made him enemies. His public statements about reopening the case drew warnings. Then, in June 1968, he too was gone. Another lone gunman, another convenient narrative. Goldwater stood at Bobby's funeral, thinking about promises made and broken. Two Kennedy brothers, both dead before their time, both silenced just as they threatened to reveal inconvenient truths. The pattern was too clear to ignore, too dangerous to challenge directly. He returned to the Senate, to politics as usual, but the knowledge weighed on him. In quiet moments, he would retrieve Kennedy's envelope, studying the evidence, updating it with new information as it emerged. The Watergate revelations showed how far the intelligence community would go to protect itself. The Church Committee hearings revealed assassination plots and domestic surveillance that made Kennedy's warnings seem prescient. In 1975, Goldwater made one last attempt at disclosure. He arranged a meeting with key senators from both parties, prepared to share what he knew. But the night before, he received a visitor, the same Secret Service agent who had escorted him to see Kennedy that November night. "Senator," the man said, older now but still carrying that air of quiet menace, "I understand you're planning to discuss ancient history tomorrow. It's not ancient if the killers are still free. Free is a relative term. The men responsible have paid in their own ways. Some are dead. Others live with their conscience, such as it is. But the institutions they represented, CIA, FBI, military, these must endure. America needs them, whatever their past sins. So we just forget? Pretend it never happened? We move forward. We learn lessons. We ensure it never happens again." The agent paused at the door. "You're an old man now, Senator. You've served honorably. Don't end your career chasing ghosts that don't want to be found." The threat was subtle but clear. Goldwater canceled the meeting, citing health concerns. The evidence went back into his safe, where it would remain until his death. But he never forgot that night in November, Kennedy's desperate eyes, the weight of foreknowledge neither of them could prevent. In his memoirs, he wrote obliquely, "I knew Jack Kennedy as both opponent and friend. He faced forces greater than any foreign enemy, and he faced them with courage, knowing the cost. We who survived owe him more than silence, but sometimes silence is all we have to give." After Goldwater's death in 1998, his family found the envelope, still sealed with Kennedy's wax. They donated it to the National Archives with a 50-year seal. When it opens in 2048, perhaps America will be ready for the truth about Dallas, about the night a president sought help from his opponent, about the forces that even the most powerful man in the world couldn't stop. Until then, the story lives in fragments, a meeting that never officially happened, warnings that went unheeded, evidence that remains sealed. But for those who know where to look, the truth is there. Barry Goldwater tried to save Jack Kennedy, and when he failed, he spent the rest of his life protecting the evidence of why he failed. In the end, that may be the real tragedy of November 22nd or 1963, not just that a president died, but that the system that killed him proved stronger than those who tried to expose it. Goldwater's silence wasn't cowardice, but recognition of a terrible reality. In America, some truths are too dangerous to tell, and some murders too perfect to solve. The Treasury entrance to the White House has since been sealed, officially for security renovations. But those who work late sometimes report seeing two figures in the hallway, one tall and young, one shorter and older, locked in eternal conversation about dangers that came to pass and warnings that went unheeded. Ghosts, perhaps, or just the echo of the night American democracy discovered its own mortality, witnessed by two men who could only watch as history rolled toward its inevitable terrible conclusion.